Thank you very much, Khanna, for inviting me to talk on this platform. So I share my presentation on a carotid Doppler right now. And what I say the carotid Doppler in present circumstances, the most important part is it has got a preventive evaluation. It has got a diagnostic purpose. And most important of all of this is therapeutic intervention are being decided today based on carotid Doppler studies. My previous speakers have done a good job by talking of so many things about a vascular Doppler, both for arterial as well as venous. So I'm not going to go close to them. Only fact I like to say that carotid is a very superficial vessel. We need a very high frequency transducer, which is very close to skin, and depth is hardly a few centimeters. And we scan both in linear as well as short axis view. Majority of time we are using color Doppler to assess the flow of our blood, and on top of that we use a pulse Doppler technology in a linear angle of angle correction of almost 60 degree. We measure both systolic and diastolic flow velocity. I'll switch on gears over here and show you one of the live demonstration which I have recorded from my own lab. This is how we sit with the patients. The patient is on the other side of a table. His head is towards you. You are sitting over here. Your machine is on the left hand side and you are scanning on the right carotid in this fashion. And once you're scanning on the right carotids, you can see your hand swelling over here. And here is a longitudinal scan which you are doing by moving in antegrade direction from feet towards his head. And as you can see the bifurcation of both the carotid vessels. Here is a common carotid artery. And as we go antegrade, we can see a bifurcation for internal and external carotid artery by just doing this kind of a phenomenon. We not only do this in long axis, we also do in short axis view, so that what we see a common carotid vessel, and as we go antegrade, we see a bifurcation of this vessel in antegrade formation with a carotid bulb and subsequently internal carotid and external carotid artery. Similarly, we can look at the bifurcation in longitudinal scan so that you can really evaluate the flow, any obstruction, or any plaque which can be easily seen over there. Not only this, by pushing a probe posteriorly, we can look at whole of the carotid vessels. And I can say at this moment, like right from the origin of the vertebral artery, we can see almost 4 to 5 segments in between the transverse process of the vertebral artery. And I can show you one of the cases where we could demonstrate a vertebral artery stenosis, not in the proximal region, but in the mid region of the vertebral artery. So this is how we scan in our lab in day-to-day fashion. I'll move on back to my presentation on main topic. Once we scan in these people, we can see a common carotid vessels which at the carotid bulb bifurcates into internal carotid. Once we swell the transducer posteriorly, and once you swell the transducer anteriorly, we can see the external carotid artery. And you can see some amount of a turbulence in this patient who is showing a turbulence right at the origin of internal carotid artery. This is the normal common carotid flow, and this is an external carotid flow. And as we can understand these vessels, the anterior vessels, they are branched vessels. They have a high resistance flow. High resistance means low diastolic flow velocity. On the contrary, the internal carotid artery is a posterior vessel after branching. It does not have any branch and is a low resistance flow. It means they carry a high diastolic flow velocity. Intimal medial thickness, that's one of the preventive aspects as on today. And until 2019, this is supposed to be the very good way of looking at the preventive cardiology, because these common carotid artery, they are a surrogate marker for coronary atherosclerosis. Look at the plaque over here, a large, not a plaque, large intimal medial thickness, but normal laminar flow. And this was in 2011 and 2012 when we said the mean intimal medial thickness of more than 0.8 millimeters is significant. But at the same time in 2011, it started appearing in literature, even the presence of a small plaque in IC is independent risk factor. And this was subsequently confirmed by this study published in 2017 in Cardiovascular Journal, saying that carotid plaque rather than intimal medial thickness is a predictor for recurrent vascular event in patient with acute ischemic stroke. Mean to say that you look at an intimal medial thickness, but at the same time you happen to find a plaque which is more important rather than intimal medial thickness. And today's in the literature and what we follow day to day in practice is, if you are patient with diabetes mellitus, if he has a plaque, the chances of having an ischemic stroke is as high as anybody else with a coronary artery disease. And we can see the p-value is less than 0.001. Next goes the prognostic impact of carotid intimal thickness and carotid plaque on development of micro and macrovascular complication in type 2 diabetes. The same paper talking about the same thing. Look, we have to spend these people of diabetes mellitus to look at the plaque and the intimal medial thickness. And if they have a plaque, howsoever small it may be, it will be of a value. And that is a take-home message number 1 in 2020. In preventive aspect of a cardiology, diabetic patient should be evaluated for presence of a plaque at the origin or at the carotid bifurcation of a common carotid artery. Now we can do a plaque scoring by this. 0 is a no observable plaque. Grade 1 is small plaque less than 30 mm of diameter stenosis. Grade 2 is 1 medium plaque 30 to 49% stenosis. Grade 3 is large plaque almost 50 to 99% stenosis, and grade 4 is 100% stenosis. As you can see that the number of percentage of stenosis as it goes up, the grading of the plaque goes up. It means to say that if we have a plaque of grade 1 and grade 2, that comes in preventive cardiology. And if you have a grade 3, grade 4 plaque, that comes in therapeutic interventions. Because if any plaque is more than 70% stenosis and he is having a small TIAs or other symptoms, then obviously these are the people who should be referred for interventions. And this is the same thing talking of prognostic impact of carotid intimal medial thickness and carotid plaque on development of micro and macrovascular complication in diabetes in individual of type 2 diabetes. And if we look at it, the carotid plaque, higher the grading of the plaque is more incidence of cerebrovascular events. Now we go to another aspect of looking at the morphology of these plaques. And I'll say the two important things which are very, very important for morphology of the plaque is, one is the echoescence and second is ulceration of a plaque. This was a figured somewhere in 10 to 20 years down the line when we never used to have a Doppler. But you look at these two important things, heterogeneity of a plaque and irregular surface. And if I happen to say all these things, when it was coined at the time, the plaques were classified as a lipid-rich, thin cap, then fibrous plaque, and the calcified plaques. And I'll show you an example later on the slides. When we have a plaque where the ulceration is positive, and if the ulceration is positive, that patient is definitely a candidate for intervention. Here is a plaque which is heterogeneous with some amount of calcium present in this plaque. Similarly, we can see a fibrous plaque with some amount of calcification. So these kind of a plaque which can easily be evaluated by doing a Doppler. Look at this plaque over here in the common carotid artery. You can look at a fibrous plaque with some amount of intraluminal calcification in the plaque. And this plaque, they are not dangerous plaques. Suppose they have a fibrofatty with central halo. They are the dangerous plaque despite having no significant stenosis. They should be undertaken for interventions. Next goes plaque at IC origin. And I happen to say that majority of plaques they are seen at the origin of internal carotid artery. Before I go and talk about the stenosis estimation, there's one word which is known as tortuosity of an internal carotid artery vessel. We see a tortuous vessel internal carotid artery over here, and this vessel is showing a turbulence. Does it mean it has got a stenosis? I'll say if you have a diastolic velocity which is more than 85 to 90 centimeters in this particular scenario, because this tortuosity will only increase the systolic velocity. If diastolic velocity is also increased in this particular vessel, it means the patient is having not only the tortuosity but associated plaque in this patient. Look at the flow velocity in this patient. The flow velocity is almost close to a meter in this patient with tortuous LICA, and they have a significant stenosis. Next comes, how do we really classify these plaques for their significance versus non-significance? If it's less than 70% of plaque stenosis, we say it's a preventive cardiology today. We have to give them a high dose of statins. We have to take care of a diabetic status. We have to take care of other comorbid conditions. If it is more than 70% stenosis, what are the parameters they talk about? We should have internal carotid artery velocity more than 230 centimeters per second. We should have an internal carotid artery end diastolic velocity of almost 85 or more, I'll say 90, 85 to 90 centimeters per second now. This report of Grand Radiology 2003-2004 talks of more than 100%, but subsequently literature talks about 85 to 90%. Another very important factor which we often miss and we don't see in our report is the ratio of internal carotid artery versus common carotid artery. If the ratio is more than 4 and these three parameters are fulfilling, it means we are carrying more than 70% of stenosis. And this has been amply said by many studies subsequently when they talk of all these things, coming to consensus to only one thing: a flow velocity more than 250 centimeters per second, ICA versus CCA ratio of more than 4 with the end diastolic ICA velocity of more than 85 centimeters per second, suggestive of 70% stenosis or more. Now the question comes, as soon as you diagnose somebody having a significant stenosis, the patient goes for a what? Either he's go for angiogram or it goes for a MRI. And at this moment, I'd like to say that duplex scan is excellent examination for screening high-grade carotid stenosis. But it tends to overestimate the degree of stenosis. Why it happens? I'm going to talk about this. Here's a slide from 2007 by a leading publisher, and that is Professor Nadalo, when he said the end diastolic velocity has to be more than 90 centimeters per second to talk of 80 to 99% stenosis in any internal carotid vessels. And when we talk of a CT scan correlation, there are three kind of studies which has been dealt with this kind of a literature. One is a European carotid studies group, second is a North American, third is a common carotid. And if you look at these three studies together, the way they have measured the plaque burden, the way they have done the estimation of a stenosis is entirely different. But the European group, they does the blockage or they does the plaque burden at the same site. North American goes distally and the common carotid goes proximally to common carotid artery. And if you are doing this kind of a duplex scanning, and if you happen to see what we were comparing internal carotid artery with common carotid artery. And the same thing is seen over here. Compared with three angiographic method of grading of carotid stenosis and examined the correlation between angio and ultrasound finding, the stenosis was graded according to all these three methods. And when these methods were compared, measurement using common carotid method were the most reproducible, and those using European, but they were the least, and North American was almost intermediate. It means to say, once you go back and look at your carotid vessel stenosis, this method should be, common carotid method is more utilized if we are trying to correlate with duplex scannings. And there's got ample data to talk about all these kind of things. Couple of lesions which I like to show. Look, this is a common carotid artery which bifurcates into internal carotid and external carotid artery. And if I put a sample volume at this particular internal carotid artery at its origin, its systolic velocity is almost more than 2 meters per second with a diastolic velocity of almost 80 centimeters per second. And the ratio is less than 4. So it's classified somewhere, ratio is more than 4, it classifies somewhere between 79 to 99% stenosis. On the other hand, look at this complete formation of a tunnel in this patient. Here is a common carotid artery, here is an internal carotid artery, and you see a huge plaque burden sitting right at the origin of the internal carotid artery. And this is only one dimension what we see over here. And you can see this tunnel over here through which the blood is flowing. And if I put my Doppler septal volume at this particular issue, look at the flow velocity is almost 5 to 6 meters per second systolic flow velocity, but the diastolic flow velocity is almost 2.5 meters per second. And there's no doubt about all this patient that he has got a significant carotid artery disease. Many people says, leave them alone. But I'm the one person who always say, don't leave them alone, because I've lost one of my very good friend who is a dentist, and despite having same kind of a lesion, and this person developed a stroke later on, and now he is living a morbid life. Another one, right internal carotid artery blockade. One of my previous speakers talked about all these things. Look, you can have a blockage suspected from outside. So we have sometimes a pressure coming from outside, but in this patient, you can see the blockade is right at the origin of internal carotid artery. You can see external carotid artery, but there is no flow in the internal carotid artery. And when you put a Doppler spectrum pattern, you can see some amount of turbulence at the distal CCA bifurcations. Now, again, the same flow, there is no flow into the carotid artery, and you can see a little flow in this particular vessel. At the same time, I like to say, sometimes we find a flow velocity in the proximal ICA, which is very small as compared to common carotid artery. And when we see a small flow velocity in the proximal ICA, always look for a distal stenosis in ICA, because the flow velocity or small velocity in the proximal ICA is suggestive of possible distal obstruction. This is what I was saying. Look at this plaque over here. This is a plaque which is seen in internal carotid artery. Look at the 2D morphology of this plaque. This plaque is absolutely ulcerated. And this is further proven by a flow of a color into this particular plaque. You can see it very clearly that flow is there. And if you happen to calculate the degree of stenosis by Doppler spectrum pattern, you will say normal. And on top of that, you send this person for carotid MRI or carotid CT angiogram. They say it's normal. But this is a person who is at very high risk of having a cerebrovascular accident, and he should be subjected for intervention despite the fact he does not have any significant stenosis. Then mass which is pressing the common carotid artery. This is a common carotid artery, and you can see the external mass. And most common thing which is seen pressing is, we have seen many people coming with the cervical lymphadenopathy. Many people coming with metastatic glands in the neck presenting with mass compressing the common carotid vessels. This is what we always look for vertebral arteries. Here is the subclavian artery giving us to vertebral artery. It does show a normal flow, and then we follow at least 5 to 6 segments of the vertebral artery to demonstrate any flow in the vertebral artery obstruction. We can see a vertebral artery flow. This is a low flow velocity, with good end diastolic velocity flow or low resistance flow. Look, there is no flow in the left vertical artery blocked at its origin. We can see a vertebral artery. Some amount of flow is seen over here. There is no flow seen in the vertebral artery, but you can see a venous flow seen in the vertebral vein. And here is left internal carotid artery with almost 80 to 99% stenosis. Again, a turbulent flow and a static flow. In conclusion, I like to say, very integral part of evaluation of a cardiac embolic stroke. Provided you're an expert, provided you spend time, provided you don't have 10 people sitting outside for a duplex scanning. This is simple non-invasive method available at bedside, gives you a great information about carotid lesion. That's too in whom to intervene apart from preventive cardiology. Any lesion more than 70% are very high incidence of recurrent stroke, and these lesions should be tackled definitely by intervention. I'm not going to talk of intervention at all. Ulcerated plaque are very important indication for intervention in spite of the fact they do not produce any significant lesion. Thank you very much. Only thing I'll say that if you are doing a carotid vessel Doppler, spend time with a carotid Doppler. Look at a complete morphology of a carotid Doppler scan, because carotid Doppler is not only for helping in people having a cerebral vascular accident, but also good for the people for preventive cardiology, especially diabetes, especially in our country. And once you diagnose a lesion, certainly send these people for intervention. Don't cling with that people with you. Look, we can treat them. And if the lesion is less than 70%, please put them on a good dose of atorvastatin and aspirin so that they do not throw embolus or a clot in the brain, because brain, even the small microcirculation it gets affected will produce a significant effect. Thank you very much for your patience hearing. Thank you, Dr. Khanna, for giving me an opportunity. I'm grateful.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rakesh. And now we move on to the next talk by Dr. K.K. Kapoor. He is a senior consultant in cardiology and head of the non-invasive cardiology department in Indraprastha Apollo Hospital. And we have been very closely working together on internal pudendal artery He's the one who actually does very good penile Dopplers, which is the basic information required for us to start with the imaging, invasive imaging, and then stenting of internal pudendal artery. So, Dr. Kapoor, over to you. We had a very interesting session 2 days back on male erectile dysfunction and interventions for that. And we had addressed both internal pudendal artery stenting as well as the outflow obstruction of venous leak. Our center is quite advanced. I think it's now the leading center in the world for male erectile dysfunction, internal pudendal artery stenting. And we have probably the largest series in the world. So, and Dr. Kapoor is the backbone of that program. So over to you, Dr. Kapoor.